great to hear you talk about Democrats wanting to win. We need a Democrat to win for governor, right? Yeah. We should, because if you look at the last 20 years, we haven't been doing very well as a governor of the Republican. As you look at what's happening in our state, our fiscal situation, we're one of the last states to adopt a budget. We're one of the biggest deficits in the country. More young people are leaving our state than any other state in the country. I mean, there's just so many things that we need a Democratic governor to do to work with the state legislature that we have to win this fall. So I'm really excited that you have charged up and looking for the best candidate. So I'm going to tell you why 8 weeks ago I decided to throw my hat in the ring and run for to be the next governor, the 88th governor of the state of Connecticut. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background, my experience, and what I have as a vision for the state of Connecticut. I'm a lifelong resident of Connecticut. I'm from New Britain, Connecticut. Raise your hand if you're from New Britain. You can tell me later. Cappy dogs, right?
I was born there for the first 4 years. My grandmother was the first woman principal in the state of Connecticut in New Britain.
What school?
Sorry?
What school?
Stanley School.
Stanley School. Okay. Smith School. We'll have to talk after. I was born in New Britain, Connecticut. My mom actually grew up in New Britain, one of 7 children. When she was just 8, her parents got very sick, and she was actually raised in foster care. She moved back to New Britain. She was actually raised in East Haven, Connecticut. She moved back to New Britain when she was 18, where she met a nice Italian guy named Angelo Messina. He ran Maple Park Bar and Grill, if you know New Britain. And by the time I was 4, and my brothers were 2, 5, and 6, my dad had died very suddenly of a heart attack. Leaving my mom to raise the 4 of us on her own. She was a widow. She didn't work. It was a very difficult time. No one in our family had ever gone to college. In fact, we had some cousins that we did pretty well. And I used to tell my mother, it's too bad that your kids can't afford to go to college. But my mother was smart. She said, you will go to college, and you'll make your life better than you had it. My brothers all went to Central Connecticut State University, but I've always been a little bit of a rebel. I went to UConn, where I met Bob. Nice to see you. I majored in journalism, and I was actually able to pay for UConn working jobs over the summer, something kids in Connecticut can't do today. I graduated with a degree in journalism, and when I graduated, I was the first woman in my family to ever graduate from college. I moved back to New Britain, where I was a newspaper reporter. I started covering municipal government, and we had a corruption probe in New Britain at the time, and I was assigned to cover the courts. I didn't really understand what was going on. I had a brother in law school that night. He said, Mary, if you go to law school, you'll be able to understand. So for $500 a semester, I went to the University of Connecticut Law School and graduated. So as a double Husky, I hope to be the first Connecticut governor to be a UConn grad. Connecticut has never had any never had a UConn grad as governor. It's about time. I share that story with you because I know how hard it is to grow up as a kid in New Britain. I know how hard it is to go to college. And I can tell you, I would not be here as a candidate running for governor unless I had been able to have opportunities that this state provided me. And I think that this state should continue to provide every kid an opportunity to get an education, to have a job, to have an affordable home, and to be able to get around our state. And we're not providing that with our state policies. So that's why I'm running. Those are the issues that are important to me. As you know, I was the 2006 candidate for lieutenant governor. I was very proud to be on that ticket, tried to elect my friend Dan, and tried to elect John DiStefano when I won. I got 57% of the vote. The other guys on the ticket got 49 and 51. So if you're talking about viability, I do real well when I'm on the primary ballot. Prior to that, I was the first selectman in Simsbury. In 1991, when I was in Simsbury, my husband and I moved to Simsbury, we couldn't find a candidate to run for first selectman after our candidate withdrew around about 6 weeks before the election. And I ran for office. I missed a town committee meeting, and you know how it goes. I was nominated to be candidate. I ran for office on 2 issues. One was education, because in 1991 we actually had a state that didn't have a state budget, and we were furloughing teachers. I'm familiar with the state now. It still doesn't have a state budget until very late. And also, I ran on open government. And 6 weeks later, I was the first Democrat in Simsbury to win in 40 years. So I did real well. I've been reelected 6 times serving my community. My last election, I won 70% of the vote in a Republican town. So I do well on primary ballots, and I do well in Republican towns and Democrats with Democrats. So I think that answers Michelle's question on viability issues. But I also tell you that I'm the only candidate that doesn't have to learn on the job. Not only have I been first selected for now going on 11 years, but I've also worked at the state capitol and I've worked in the executive branch. In 1999, I decided not to run for re-election, and I got a call from the first female Speaker of the House, Laura Lyons, and she asked me to come up and be counsel to the Speaker. And I was very proud to be up at the Capitol where I learned how to write bills on transportation, education, and a number of issues. And what I saw in that experience working up at the Capitol is that we don't have state policies that support our local community. And as I travel all around the state, I see towns like Glastonbury, Simsbury wrestling with the same issues based on the problems that we don't have support from the state aid, and we can talk about a lot of those tonight. But we just don't have a governor that's connected with our municipalities. I also worked with State Senate President Kevin Sullivan, where I worked on education, special education, and mental health issues. And I can tell you there's millions of dollars that the state is leaving on the table by not going after some of the federal dollars that are available to our mental health programs. Also, I worked in the executive branch, and it was really amazing. As I was chief of staff in the executive branch, I would walk into my office every morning, work on issues like housing and a number of things, and then walk out at the end of the day by an empty parking space where the governor should be parked. So what we've seen over the last 20 years is the governor who doesn't show up for work. And I pledge to you, I'll be a governor who shows up for work and gets the job done. My vision for the state of Connecticut, having had experience at the local level, in the legislative level, and in the executive branch, is to make sure every kid and everybody in Connecticut has an opportunity, and that we have a vision for our state. We implement that vision by coordinating state policies. Number one, we have to get our fiscal budget under control. We know we can do it because we've done it in communities like ours and yours, where we meet our bonding obligations, where we meet our pension obligations, where we work with our unions. In Simsbury, we negotiated last year without lawyers, without any binding arbitration, with our 6 unions, a zero wage freeze with our community. Because our employees and our unions knew how important it was for us to sit at the table and to make sure we couldn't raise taxes. And so we were one of the first communities in the state to actually settle our budgets without having to go to arbitration and without having any wage increases. So I know we can do that at the state level. It requires a governor who can work with the legislature. And that's the problem. We haven't had a Democratic governor, so we haven't had a governor who's been able to